Morning, this is Mrs. Heisemann, and today we are going to be talking about making a shape toy that's going to look like this. It is a shape toy box for toddlers where we're going to put the shapes. We're going to cut holes so that our pegs fit inside the box. The box is going to be hollow, and then there's going to be a removable top that the kids can pull and everything falls out. So you've probably seen these before. We're going to start by building a box, and I know the directions say 8 by 8, but you can actually make it any size you like. You can change that. And you're going to put 3 holes at least on each side. Some of you might discover that more than 3 works for a section, or you might just do one piece that do 3 holes on each one of the sides and then do 4 on the top or something, which is fine. You don't generally put any on the bottom. So what shapes you do are kind of up to you. I recommend ovals, which in Inventor are called ellipses, hexagons, octagons, parallelograms, heart shapes, triangles, diamonds. Those are all more complicated shapes, but they're shapes that kids like. And so, especially for toddlers, you really want to have that be something they can physically touch and put their hands on and use. So, in order to make this, keep in mind that whatever holes you make, you have to make a matching peg. And so what I did is I created a little table so I could keep track. And I'm going to give you this table so that you can keep track as well, or you can make your own. We are going to use parametric modeling to do this. Parametric modeling means that we're going to create a table that has all of our sizes and formulas in it, and then when we go in and change something, everything changes together, so that you don't have to worry about, oh, well, now it's not centered. It should always be centered that way. And so we are going to start there with measurement, size, and formula. So I went and opened an Excel document. We'll just make it bigger here. Okay, so one thing you have to know about your Excel document that you're going to do your parametrics from. One, don't put in any header rows the first time you do it, because Inventor has a really hard time with that. And don't put any abbreviations or unusual characters like the parentheses. I just discovered that obviously because I put the parentheses in the first time, it wasn't going to work. And so it should just say width, height, depth. Save. You can shrink this and leave it open. You're going to come over to Inventor, New, Standard IPT. On the origin, we're going to create a 2D sketch on the XY plane. And in there, we're going to draw a random rectangle. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to come over here to Manage Parameters, and I'm going to link it to the Paralist 2, which I just created. And notice it says Start Cell A1. After, notice now width, height, and depth show up. If you have parentheses in there for W, H, and D inside the parentheses, it freaks out. So we just are going to leave it the way it is. I like to do immediate updates, so as soon as I change something in Excel, it changes it here. You can uncheck that and force it to do updates only when you tell it to do an update, which is also fine. It's kind of up to you. So we're going to hit Done. We're going to go back to the Sketch tab, and we're going to dimension. Click, click. And now inside, you see I get a choice now of list parameters. I'm going to check that, and I'm going to say this is the width. Green check mark, and if I zoom out, notice it tells me what that parameter is. So now I'm going to dimension this. Same way, I go to list parameters. This is the height, and zoom out. There we go. And there's my height. I'm going to finish my sketch. Do a zoom out, and I'm actually going to turn it so I can see it. And now I'm going to extrude it, and again, see how there's a little arrow there? I can click List Parameters and turn that into the depth, which in this case is 8. So I go home. This is my solid, completely solid box that's 8 by 8 by 8. So I want to shell it out, so I'm going to use the shell tool. And it shows you how it shells, either half and half or all the way. I just want to go in, and I want to remove the top face, but I don't want it to be a 0.1, which is 1/10 of an inch thickness. I want it to be a 1/2 an inch thick. And you're going to say, okay, that's really thick. And it is, but keep in mind, this is for toddlers, so you want it to be pretty durable. 1/2 inch is about where I think I want it. But what you might decide, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick iMenu, save as, and put it onto my U drive. There we go, there it is. So I'm going to go put this, save it into the correct folder, and shape box, I'm going to call this box 2 because I already have a box 1 because I've already been playing with it. So I'm saving it, giving it a name, and now I'm going to go back to Excel and I'm going to change this and make it 10. Whoops, over 10, 10, and now I'm going to save it again, shrink it, and now you can see, you're going to say it didn't do anything, except that it actually did. So if I go right click, edit sketch, you see now it's changed those to 10. It just, because I had checked that box that said automatic, it just does it. So I don't have to go through all of that. And it's still, mind you, the extrusion is now out 10 as well. So it looks a little bigger than it did before. I think I kind of like that better. So now I'm going to work on some of the more interesting shapes for your shape box. You're going to be able to pick your own shapes. But I know that some of you are going to ask me, like, how do I do a hole? How do I do a parallelogram? All that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kind of go through and show you that. The first thing I'm going to do is a left click and create a new sketch. Now, before I can do much of anything, I have to figure out how to center everything. Well, if I centered like let's say I drew a box and I want to center that box, and I click here, click, whoops, cancel. If I click, pull up, click, and then I could tell it that I wanted that to be my, whoops, list of parameters. I can go over here and find the width and then divide it in half, because that should give me the center, right? And it does. But it centers it on the edge of the box. So now the edge of my rectangle is perfectly in the center. That's not going to look right once I get it done, correct? So what I really want to do is, first off, I'm going to, whoops, okay, delete that, is I need to really center this rectangle more over here, so it's in the center of that half of the box. So there's the middle of my box. I really want it to be on that side or this side. So I really want to break that into quarters, and my box is interesting because it's going to be half on one side and half on the other of my quarter line. So we're going to have to do a little bit of math to make that work. So we're going to go back to the Excel document. We're basically going to have Excel do all the math for us. So we're going to send top. Well, to center it across the top, I don't really want it in the center, I want it in the quarter. Because think about it, if I draw in 3 lines, I've broken it into 4 equal sections. So I'm actually going to add a capital Q there and call that Q send top. And now I'm going to use an equal sign here, and I'm going to take whatever my width was and divide it into quarters. So divide by 4. And I'm going to do the same thing for the side, Q send underline side. And you're going to say, why doesn't she just put a space instead of an underline? That's because if you put in a space, Inventor can't rate it anymore. So you have to put in an underline. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use my equal sign to tell it I want a formula, I want my height, and I want it divided by 4. And now I've got everything broken up into 4 sections, so it should be pretty easy to do. I want also all of my pegs to be about the same width and height, and I want them all to be the same depth, so that when I make my pegs, they all fit correctly into the same thing. And if I kind of try and make them all the same, it works out a little better for me. So I'm going to say peg width, whoops, I put a space in, didn't I? Peg underlined width. And the peg width, I'm going to say 2, and then I'm going to type peg underline height, and I'm going to type 2, and peg underline depth. This is going to be how tall the peg ends up being, and I'm thinking that I really want it to be like, what, 4? Probably, so twice as long as it is wide. And I could have made those parametrically with equal signs and formulas and make them all match up perfectly, but I might want to change the width or the depth of my main box and then change the size of the peg as I go. And I might want to do this separately, so I actually typed in numbers for those. So if I'm going to do a circle, I need a diameter. And again, if my peg width is 2, I probably want my diameter to be 2, which means my radius, which should be half of my diameter, so I'm actually going to use equals, click on the diameter number, and then divide by 2. So if I change that, then my radius will also change. And I can use either of those. So I'm going to save my table, I'm going to shrink it, I'm going to come back over here to Inventor. I'm going to go to Manage, I'm going to click on Update, and now I should be able to go back to Sketch, and I'm going to make this square the size that I want by going to Listing of Parameters, and I want the peg width there, and I want the peg height here, so I have to go in, List Parameters, Peg Height. Okay, now I want to center it, so I'm going to click, pull up and click, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to say that I want List Parameters, I want the quarter center of the top, and click. And you say, okay, that looks okay. But notice half of my, because it's centering on the edge of the rectangle, half of my rectangle is on either side of that quarter line. And so what I'm actually going to do is take the center top and divide it in half, because half the box has to be on one side, or half of my rectangular hole has to be on one side and half has to be on the other. So we're going to do that and see if that works out better for us. Now, the other thing is I want to do all of my cuts at once. I don't want to have 1,200 different sketches that I'm all cutting. Inventor doesn't like it when you do that too much, so I'm going to try and put them all on here and cut them all at once. So now I'm going to make an ellipse. Now, ellipses are difficult, so don't sit here and tell me, oh, I don't know, I can't do it. I know, they're hard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and it's going to give me, notice that's the radius, it's from the center out. So I'm actually going to select my radius, and I'm going to go List Parameters and find Radius right there and hit OK. And because it has a radius, of 1, now at the same time this ellipse though also has a diameter here, so, or a radius on this side as well, and it probably won't give it to me. No, it doesn't want to. So, and which is kind of one of those odd things with ellipses. You have to be super careful that your distances are correct, because otherwise it's going to freak out on you. So what I think I'm going to do is actually try and dimension it over. And there we go, it's going to dimension on center, so I should be able to just do the quarter line. So I'm going to List Parameters, quarter, center, top. Okay, so it's moved it over. But I really don't have any idea how wide this thing is. So what I really need to do is dimension from that end, because I have to make a peg that's exactly the same size. Oops, oh, there it is. That's what I want right there. And notice that I have to move it around and really work at it. But if I make that List Parameter and I want to do the radius. Now mind you, if I leave the radius the way it is, it'll make it 1 by 1 and it'll be a circle, which just defeats the purpose. But I don't want my radius, I don't want that to be all funky either, because 1.686, I'm never going to remember that. So I'm going to say radius, and then I'm going to put a plus sign, and radius was 1, so I'm going to add 0.5 to it. so it's 1.5. There, see? So now that's 1.5, it's the radius plus 0.5, and that's the radius, and now that should work better for a peg, so now I know how big it is. And now I'm going to okay that. That looks to me like it's good, but I haven't centered them down. So I'm going to click the top of my box, come over here, and I'm going to choose a list parameter, quarter center side, and remember, because the box is going to center on that edge, I have to divide that quarter center side in half to center it correctly. I'm going to do the same thing here, except I don't have to divide it because it's going to do it on center. So in this case, quarter center side, list parameters, quarter center side should be perfect. There. So now it is centered both of those pieces for me, and now I need another shape down here. So this is where I'm going to try a polygon shape, and let's say I'm going to do a hexagon. So you can change this number to be an octagon, you can make it 12-sided, you can make it 20-sided, make a dodecahedron, but that kind of just looks like a circle to a little toddler. So we're just going to make it a 6-sided thing. So notice I have not closed that polygon window. I'm going to come in here, click, pull, click, right click OK to get done with it. Now I have to select the center point, and I'm going to select this top point right there, and that should be half, so it should be my radius. So I'm going to go in and go to my there's radius. It's on there because I already selected it once recently. So now my radius is 1 inch, and now all I have to do is center it. So I'm going to center it across, and in this case it's across the bottom, but I'm going to use the quarter center top parameters, quarter center top, because it's the same number. Whoops, what happened? What did I do wrong? Oh, quarter center top, and I have to divide it by 2. Interesting. Okay, so we will get rid of that and try again. I could also hit equals and just center it the same way I did that one. Or not. Okay, go away. Okay, so to dimension that, I'm going to click dimension. Now I'm going to click the center of my hexagon and the edge, and I'm going to select my parameters, list of parameters, and I'm going to go with quarter center top and enter. And I'm doing it on center the same I would a circle. And there's a reason for that. It will not want to center it based on an edge because a hexagon has angles to it. So in this case, I want quarter center side, list parameters, quarter center side. Okay, and so now it has done that. You can say, okay, but it's not in the middle of the box, so you should have 2 on top that are centered like this and 1 in the middle. Okay, well, that's fine. So in this case, instead of quarter center, I want to do a half center. So I could do quarter center top times 2. And there it goes. It shifted it over. And I can now go finish sketch, and I should be able to extrude, 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 and instead of selecting what I want to extrude, I'm going to collect the shell number and a cut and hit a, whoops, cancel. Apparently I did something wrong. Alright, so I am going to go to 3D model. I'm going to extrude this and this and this. We are going to come over here and do a cut, and we are going to do it list parameters to the same depth as the shell so that it cuts them through. Now I'm going to make this back wall a different color, and honestly it doesn't matter what you make it. The only reason I'm making a different color is so that you can see the shapes. So that's what I have. And some of you are probably looking at that going, okay, but there's a lot of box there and not a lot of hole, and I really kind of want my pegs bigger than that. And I agree. I kind of want my pegs bigger than that too. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to come back to my Excel document. I'm going to say I really want the peg width to be 2.5. So I'm going to type for my peg to number lock 2.5, and 2.5, and then my peg depth, I'm going to leave it 4. My diameter, I want to be 2.5, which means my radius changes because I did my radius based on my diameter. So let's save that, shrink it, come back over here to Inventor, and now I'm going to go to Manage and click Update. So that's better. Now they're a little bit bigger, make a little bit more sense. Okay, now for some advanced shapes, I'm going to go over here to the other side. I'm going to click on Create a New Sketch. And someone asked me the other day, how do you make a heart? Well, I'm not really sure how other people do it, but I'm going to show you how I do it, and you might come up with a better way to do it than I did. But what I'm going to do is I'm making a straight line, and I'm going to come in and select that as my diameter. So list parameters, and I'm going to go find diameter and make it whatever my diameter is. Then I'm going to use my spline tool to click, 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 and click. So it kind of looks like a heart. Check mark it. And yeah, I'm making it essentially like a half a heart. Then all I have to do is pattern and select the shape, and I want to go around that center line and hit apply, and now I have a heart. And now when I move the bits here, you can see that they actually control both sides. So I can grab either one, so I can zoom in here and make it look more like the heart that I want, and I can kind of play with it a little bit. Here's the only problem that I see is that making the, you need it to be exactly the way you want it, because you're going to have to basically copy this and make a peg that's exactly the same size and exactly the same thing. So you're going to have to do some copy and paste and some interesting things to try and get that to work. So what I can do, and notice I can't go out to that spline. I can go to that spline point though. And that says, oh, out to that spline point is 1.683. Now if I wrote that down in my table, then I would know, okay, make that spline point out to 1.6.3, and I can do the same thing to this spline point, and that way I have all of my spline points dimensioned so that I know how big to make those, so that when I go to make my heart-shaped peg, it's exactly perfect. So for now, what I need to do is I need to dimension the tip of this line and the top there. I need it to come down the correct amount, so I need that to be the quarter, list parameters, quarter center side. Whoa! So it moved all my other stuff, because what it did was it did just that and not this top piece. So I'm going to undo that and go in and delete that, and see how the heart can get kind of interesting. And I want that to, that says, okay, 90 degrees. That's not helpful. All right, so I can move this around. I would recommend, actually, let's try this. Let's do the line centered first and then do everything else. So we're going to dimension to the tip of that line. Oh, I've already got it. That's fine. So we're going to move that to be list parameters, quarter center side. Okay, and then I want this to there to be quarter center top. So I'm going to move that and have that be list parameters, quarter center top. So now it's centered. Now I can go in with my spline tool. And I like 4 points for my heart, and notice I click when it goes green so that I'm sure it's making a perfect connection, and then I just mirror it, select the thing I want to mirror, select the line I mirrored around, apply. I now have 2 of them, and now I kind of think, oh, that's much better, I think. Well, maybe not. Maybe that can go in. No, I want it out. I kind of want a fat heart, so it's more like a Valentine's Day heart. There we go. So now I can go in and dimension from that point to here, and it will tell me how big it is. And so I can write all those down so that when I go to make my peg, I know exactly where those should be. Oh, no. There we go. That's what I wanted. Right there. Okay. So now I can write down all my numbers. I know what those are. Now someone else asked me about a parallelogram. They want to do a box that was tilted. Well, the only way I know how to do that, and there could be other ways, I just don't know about them, is I start with the line tool and I draw what I want, and I click when it goes green, right click OK, and now I want to make horizontal constraint. I want that to be horizontal. I also want that to be horizontal. And I can't make a vertical constraint because then it would be a box. But what I can do is I can make a equals there, so that those two lines are exactly the same. Now I'm going to dimension this, and some people are going to go, huh? Because I'm going to do this odd, but if I'm going to make that, I have to do an angle. So you see how it's showing me the angle? So if I make that 100, so let's go in and make that 113. Well, you're going to say, okay, I don't really understand what you did. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use a calculator because these are complementary and supplementary angles. This is a geometry problem. So 113 on that side. If I subtract 180 out of that, that means the other side's got to be 67. So I'm going to dimension this, click, click, yep, it's 67, accept. So then that means that this one should also be 67, and accept, that's fine. It's putting them in parentheses saying you can't change that, which is fine. So that should also be 113. So now because I made those equal and I made that 113, I made them all equal, which is fine. So now I'm going to say, how big do I want that line to be? Well, all of my pegs are about the same. So I'm going to go to list parameters, and I want the peg width to all be about the same. So I made the peg width 2.5. Now, what I need to do is I need to make this line longer or shorter. So I'm going to go there, and I'm going to say that distance from this point right there to this bottom line should be the same as my peg height. Let's see if I've over-dimensioned it. I have not, so it worked. So now my peg height is correct and my peg width is correct, but now I need to center it. So I'm going to click, click, and I'm going to center this at quarter center, list parameters, quarter center side, and remember though, because it's just like a rectangle, halves on either side, I'm going to divide that in half. There. And you're going to say, but that's not the same here. Right, because remember we did this and we centered by the top of that. So what we might have to do is go back, and that should also be quarter center side in half. Oh, yeah, that's so not what I meant to do. Okay, so we'll undo that. All right, I'll go fix that one in a second. So to do the top, I'm going to click, point, whoops, I have to be in dimensioning. See how I just get that red point right there? Click, zoom back out, this whole side, click up here, and this one is going to be list parameters, quarter center top, divided in half. There we go, quarter center top divided in half. So there you go with a parallelogram. Now, mind you, my heart is off, and I can't move it because I need to, basically I need to center that correctly to begin with. So it's a little off, but that's okay for now. If this were my actual project, I'd delete this and start over again. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so I can see. So I need to put something down here at the bottom. So if I put, let's see, we did an ellipse, done a rectangle, a triangle. There are different ways to do a triangle. You can either do a rectangle that you cut in half, or you can come over here to polygon, tell it to make a triangle with 3 sides. I'm actually going to do a diamond, which is a polygon with 4 sides. And you're going to say, but that's just a square. Yes, but it's a turned square. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to go from this point to the center. That should be the same as my radius measurement because it's halfway across. So I'm going to go to List Parameters and select Radius, and OK. It makes it a little smaller, which is fine. So those should all be the same. Now I'm going to go from this point to that point is going to be my center, my quarter center half. List Parameters, quarter center side, and I'm going to divide that in half because again, half, whoa, wrong way. Of course it is. Okay, let's see what that does. Yeah, that puts it right where I want it, which is not where I had it. So I'm going to undo. It's because I did it to the wrong one, isn't it? Yeah, you just figured that out. Is that I should be dimensioning this bottom angle to that bottom line right there. And that should be the quarter center half. So I'm going to go here, List Parameters, quarter center side, and I want it to be halfway, divide by 2. There we go. And now I need this point to go to that line, right like so, right in the very center, which is going to be the List Parameters quarter center top times 2, because I really wanted half center top. There. So now it's perfectly in the center. Finish my sketch, and now I should be able to go to update all that. Go to 3D Model, Extrude, click, 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 and now I'd like to cut it, and I'd like to cut it List Parameters at the same distance that I shelled it, so that works. Now I'm going to go in and just put a color on the back so you can see what it looks like. We'll make it blue ball paint or something. So now you can see what that side looks like. And now you can do all of your other ones. So that's just a few of the more complicated shapes that you can put on there.